Before we get started, please go over to Amazon.com and grab a copy of my book, Education and Justice. If you have an African-American son in public school, you need this book because I teach you the many ways that public schools mistreat African-American boys and what you can do to help your son. So go over there and get your copy immediately. All right, so this week we witnessed a beef or debate or civil war within Maga. On one side, you got the tech bros billionaires. On the other side, you got mainline Maga. And the civil war started, or the beef, whatever you want to call it, started when the tech bros billionaires, Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy, expressed their support to continue H-1B visas. Now, I did a video on H-1B visas and the Indian American population or immigrant community about 7-8 months ago. You can find the link to that video in the description below. And I encourage you to go and watch that video. But anyway, the mainline MAGA were incensed and really upset that Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy expressed a desire to see H-1B visas continue for obvious reasons. Mainline MAGA are very fearful of America becoming a minority-majority country. So they are against immigration, especially immigration targeting black and brown people. So they came out swinging. Folks like Steve Bannon, Laura Loomer, Matt Gaetz came out swinging, especially Steve Bannon and Laura Loomer, and also Matt Gaetz. I mean, they were absolutely incensed, going back and forth all week. Now, I didn't hear in any of that ruckus discourse what the beef was really all about. And let me tell you what it was all about. It is all about racism. MAGA is a racist movement. So this whole immigration push or pushback, depending on which side you're on, is still all rooted in racism. That's why the biggest problem is immigrants from black and brown nations. So in this video, I'm going to express the black perspective. I'm going to show you why race is at the root of this. Now, ironically, I actually agree with some of what Vivek expressed in his tweet, this really, really long tweet. Now, some parts of it is just offensive for any native-born American, but some of it is on point. Although I disagree with Vivek's, general stance on this thing of bringing in more and more and more H-1B visa folks. All right, so let's just look at a little of this tweet. The reason top tech companies often hire foreign-born and first-generation engineers over Native Americans isn't because of an innate American IQ deficiency or deficit, a lazy and wrong explanation. A key part of it comes down to the C word, culture. Obviously, Indian people are very proud of their culture. Dinesh D'Souza, another Indian immigrant, or I don't know if Dinesh was actually born here, but anyway, he is of Indian descent, and he blames black culture for the issues we see in the African-American community. Okay? So apparently these folks are really, really proud of Indian culture. So he goes on to say, tough questions demand tough answers. And if we're really serious about fixing the problem, we have to confront the truth. Our American culture has venerated, that is, sort of honored, mediocrity over excellence for way too long, at least since the 90s and likely longer. That doesn't start in college, it starts young. A culture that celebrates the prom queen over the math Olympiad champ or the jock over the valedictorian will not produce the best engineers. a culture that venerates Corey from Boy Meets World or Zach and Slater over Screech. These are all 90s, I think 90s sitcom. I remember some of these. I didn't really watch them. He goes on to mention Stefan versus Steve Urkel from Family Matters. You remember Steve Urkel was a nerd. So he's essentially saying nerds are the ones that are really valued in this high-tech world. And America doesn't, the American culture doesn't emphasize enough of the STEM-related education. Now, I can't speak for I can't speak for all Americans, but I can say that having majored in chemistry in college, I do agree with Vivek that a major focus should be STEM education. Now, I do know that not everyone wants to be in a STEM profession. There are some folks who are artists. There are some folks who love a liberal arts type of career. There are some folks in the social science area, and so on. I get it. But in this high-tech world, majoring in some STEM-related major is smart. And if you're going to do that, if a parent desires or if a child desires to be in STEM, you do have to start early, sort of steering that child in that direction. All right? Again, I know that from, again, having majored in chemistry in college. All right, so he goes on to say more movies like Whiplash, fewer reruns of Friends, more math tutoring, fewer sleepovers, more weekend science competitions, fewer Saturday morning cartoons, more books, less TV, more creating, less chilling, more extracurriculars, less hanging out at the mall. Now, this paragraph I strongly agree with because it is the way we raised our children. Our kids, when they got home from school, they got a snack. These were the rules we had. They got a snack, and then they had to do their homework. And after that, they had to read an hour. And they had to do all of that before they were able to go outside, or because back in that day, the kids were going outside. They didn't have these smart devices. But anyway, they had to do all of that before they could get any downtime. And that was a hard and fast rule in our house. I mean, hard and fast. We told our children, you cannot get less than a B in any subject because we knew what they could do. We knew their academic abilities. We knew their potential. So we said, having assessed that, do not bring less than a B in this house. And they responded. Both of them graduated high up in the top percentile of their graduating classes and are both today are professionals. I do agree with that. And I wrote about that in my book, Education and Justice, where I talk about the fact that the home is really the most important place to start a child off right, not just in education, but in everything, but including education. Let me quote some scripture. The Bible says, train up a child in the way that he should go, and when he's old, he'll not depart. So if you start early training a child up for academic excellence, then that's what you'll get. And I'm making this point because I want to see African American students perform much better academically. I'm bothered big time over the fact that about 8% of 8th grade black male students, can read on grade level. I mean, that is a major frustration for me, having been a public school teacher. I agree with Vivek on that point. He goes on to say, most normal American parents look skeptically at, quote, those kinds of parents. Parents like myself, this is true. Parents like me, my wife and I, who, again, insisted that our kids perform well in school, bring A's mostly home, that they couldn't watch TV. My kids will tell you they did not watch TV most of their upbringing. They couldn't watch TV. They had to find, again, let me say it again, it's all in my book. They had to first, get a snack when they got home from school, finish homework, and then they had to read at least an hour. Then they got a chance to go out. And that seemed draconian to a lot of parents that we knew. But those were our rules. I agree with this. I don't agree with Vivek's overall point of just bringing in more and more and more and more H-1B visa people. I don't agree with that. And I'll tell you why in just a moment. I think he says something else. So he says, normalcy doesn't cut it in a hyper-competitive global market for technical talent. And if we pretend like it does, we'll have our blanks handed to us by China. This can be our Sputnik moment. Sputnik, that's really important. I wrote about Sputnik in my book. And it was when Russia jumped ahead, sort of leapfrog ahead of us technologically. And that sent shockwaves through America, and it made America say, hey, we got to do more educationally. We got to invest more into education, which brings me to my second point and why this is racist. And I say it because of this simple fact. Maga says it is all about America first. And that's why they are opposing the tech bros billionaires. America first. Fill those jobs with American workers. Here's where MAGA shows their racism. MAGA doesn't want the country to invest the money necessary to get schools that are in predominantly low-income neighborhoods up to par with the rest of the schools so that those kids can get a proper education, including STEM education, right? And then those kids can fill the needs of these tech companies. So a whole population of African-American kids are being overlooked and left behind because of racism. MAGA is wanting to shut down the Department of Education and redirect funds from low-income neighborhood schools, black schools primarily, and redirect them to other places. That's not America first. That's white America first. Let's really be about America first. Let's invest the same dollars in predominantly African-American low-income neighborhoods as we do across town in the white communities. And then we will see the talent, the raw talent that's in the African-American community. Raw talent. There's some really smart children in these communities. But we need help because quite often they're not coming from the two-parent family. They're not coming from a family where the parents have had the luxury of just focusing academically. Some of these parents, some of these single mothers, for example, they got to work several jobs and just don't have the time oftentimes. And I know this for a fact. I was a teacher. To do what is necessary to help their children. And I'm not making an excuse, okay? But some of them just don't have the wherewithal to do that for whatever reason. And I wrote in my book that teachers who teach those kinds of kids have to be the person of last resort who says, okay, I can't change this child's personal situation at home, but I have this child for 8 hours. 8 hours. I'm going to make my classroom be a sanctuary for this child. This child will be expected to perform well in my classroom. This child will get the support he needs or she needs. This child I will do everything in my power to help this child just grow and blossom academically. And what oftentimes happens is the very opposite of what I just said. Oftentimes, the school system takes the position of, well, there's nothing that I can do about this child's home situation, so I'm just going to give up on him. Well, it's true that you probably can't do much of anything for the child's home situation, but that does not justify teachers giving up on these kids, nor does it justify Maga not wanting to invest money in the schools that serve these kids. And if we did that, if we somehow got rid of the racism and invest like the Kerner Commission report. Some of you may not be familiar with the Kerner Commission report, but the Kerner Commission report was a commission that Lyndon Johnson established in the 60s that around all those riots that occurred, and basically released a report saying that the country needs to invest massive amounts of money in these school districts, in these inner city neighborhoods, to get those families up to par, and the country never did it. The government never did that. Had it done that, there is a very good chance that we would see a different situation today. But as of right now, those children are being left behind. And if we invested in those kids, I am convinced that those kids could become the engineers that this nation needs. Instead of having to go to India and other places to bring in this talent. This talent base is right here under our nose. But racism prevents us from investing in these children. That's the black perspective of this debate. Because neither side of this debate want to tackle that problem. Many of them demagogue that problem. But that is the problem, and that is the solution. And that's my 2 cents worth in MAGA's debate. Other than that, I could care less about their debate. But I know the root of it. And I know that we could, with one stone, kill two birds. We could help these kids who need and deserve help with smart investments, and we could meet our nation's demand for high-level, high-skill, educated, STEM-oriented kids. Okay? So that is the black perspective on this MAGA Civil War. I am Reverend and Attorney Augustus Corbett. Thank you for watching this video. Peace.